Mike, the hamsters are running in the wheel to try to
Mm-hmm.
get this going. Do you think they've
I
started?
hear it. The wheel needs oil. I hear it.
The wheel needs oil. Yeah. Like last week, for whatever reason, this didn't work on LinkedIn, but worked on YouTube and Facebook. Huh.
Really?
Yeah. And I know that you hate that we're on Facebook. So there. Ah,
Yeah.
Facebook worked. Hey, and last week we were talking from a live conference,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually a really good conference. The best thing about it was your speech, and that's what somebody else said, not me, because I didn't watch your speech because I was doing other stuff. And anytime I want to hear you speak, I can just call you. Was that your first 3D speaking engagement since the before times?
Let me think. Not quite. I think didn't I do one last? Yeah, the Waswood conference, right, for the water sector in Washington State.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love that one too. ACES is coming up, the Association of County and City Information Systems, near and dear to
Mm-hmm.
my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up in April in Spokane, so I'm going to be there to talk about the Pisces project and the state and local cybersecurity grant program and whatever anyone else wants to talk about.
And importantly, not in Spokane for a story I will tell later.
Mm.
It is in Airway Heights.
Oh yeah, well, okay. It's at the Northern Quest Casino. Okay, let's be specific.
Oh, I didn't realize it was at the casino. That's great.
But it is, which
Hey,
I got to tell you, for people that work in government to get authorization to go, we're going to go to a conference at a casino, is not that easy to do. I know this.
and on a serious note, today we have a panel on the moving target known as CMMC, which is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Say that 10 times quick. If you come
No.
to the webinar, I will try. And that's for anyone who's a DoD contractor. DoD is Department of Defense. We'll have some of our top consultants there to provide guidance on all the changes because they keep changing it. Navigating compliance, whatever compliance means for this, so that your company can, then bid on federal opportunities. It's a whole DoD mess. And we're shocked that there is a mess that involves the DoD, right?
Right.
All right, Mike, what are we going to talk about today here?
So, how about organized cybercrime and war and how those two intersect? So, honestly, today I think we should go through some big vulnerabilities that were disclosed over the last few days and make sure everyone knows what they need to be patching right now.
Yeah, I mean, but before that, there's a whole Russia thing going on, Mike. Any nation state cybering that's worth pointing out?
Yes and no. So if you get the news blast, you know that articles have started popping up asking, where's the big cyber attack from Russia? The answer is that, cyber is not a blunt force instrument. It's a surgical instrument that can be used to push forward strategic goals, especially if you don't want to make a lot of noise and look like you're, causing an escalation in war, and hopefully no fingerprints, right? I mean, that's what makes it valuable. We've talked about a few companies that look like they fit that description, right? Surgical strategic targets, expediters, satellite internet companies in Ukraine, that fuel storage company in Germany. So that's what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, I also read in an FBI flash bulletin more than 50 critical infrastructure organizations have been compromised. Is that right? 50? Presumably meaning that, Russian actors can just come and go in those networks, destroy them on command, read what's going on. I mean, the world seems to be waiting for something to go boom. Sounds like that has the potential for that, staring us in the face. Yes?
Okay, so again, yes and no. The fact that we can identify those organizations means that there have been ongoing efforts to expunge the attackers from those networks. Now, whether or not this was completely successful and whether or not there are other critical infrastructure operators that have been compromised and don't know it, and I'm sure there must be, we're still at risk. So, and in fact, these organizations were apparently compromised, all of them, by the Ragnar Locker ransomware. And yesterday, the FBI put out another flash bulletin with Ragnar Locker indicators. So, do you have that link? I think you have the link. If you can throw that in the
Yeah,
chat.
I'll grab it. I'll grab it and I'll throw it. So since we're live on both LinkedIn and YouTube, if this link doesn't show up for you, just email me, jake@criticalinsight.com, and I'll kick you over the link. But I'll
Or
throw it
Google
in the
it,
chat here.
right?
Or you can use the Google machine, which is better than emailing me. But yeah.
Yeah, even if you throw it in the chat and somebody sees this on replay later, it's pretty short URL. It's pretty easy to type in. So now that said, there's one good thing resulting from the Russian aggression that we can already measure.
Oh, what is that good thing, Mike? The prices are spiking, and we're going to be paying a price here.
That's not the good thing. The good thing is the sanctions are working, and the paid trolls and bot operators that push disinformation into social media aren't getting paid. So that activity has dropped way off. People really have noticed. So, thus reducing the risk of the gullible having their bias confirmed with, internet guy says Russia
Mhm.
good.
I mean, if that's a little victory, I'll take it. I think we're all, trying to decide whether we're okay paying a little bit higher gas prices, which, that does kind of, well, at least it's led to a lot of good jokes about gas prices. The best one I've heard was, I saw the guy at pump 3 pay $5 for gas. I wonder where he thinks he's going. Pump 4.
Just hang on. Here's one thing I think we can do. There are a lot of people that have to drive. There are a lot of people like us that can, sit our butts in front of a computer and talk on video all day long and not drive. And if those of us that can get away with not driving refrain from driving, that lowers demand for gas, and the people that have to drive get some relief. So
Also, not so bad for the
don't drive.
environment.
Yeah.
All right. Anything new with the activism we talked about last week and that you talked about at the conference?
So only insofar as they're basically confirming what I said. Unrestrained third-party hackers getting involved in selecting their own targets creates a risk that someone who is completely well-meaning can disrupt the strategic mission of Ukraine or NATO. So repackaging that, you may accidentally start World War III, right? Putin looks for excuses to escalate. Please don't give him any. So, I mean, that's the new thing, on that topic is articles are coming out saying, don't do this, don't do this.
And, and I want to get to, you had a recommendation for people, but there's a question in the chat here, which is, what do you think about the IT army that's potentially been recruited by the request of the Ukraine government? The potential for Russia to assume or blame the U.S. for supplying a majority of recruited talent and consider as an act of war, as they've alluded to in the past.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Great question, and you're 100% right. If, again, Putin looks for excuses to escalate. The United States just supplied a whole bunch of hackers to come after our infrastructure. Is that an act of war? People could call it that, and all of a sudden we're the NATO country that started scribbling into Russian infrastructure, and then things get out of control. So,
well, he's already told the Russian people that we're waging economic war against him.
We are.
And there's a great piece in the New York Times today about, how, that Putin expected the sanctions to be the same as they were going to be, that they were against, with the whole Crimea issue. What was that? 6 years ago? I forget how many years ago.
2014.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
I can do math, I swear. And that's just not the case. I mean, they don't have McDonald's, and now they're saying, hey, Russians, if you want to open a McDonald's, we're canceling all international trademark. So that's the depth of the economic war he's telling folks in Russia, and to call this cyber war as part of their economic war makes sense.
Well, and this, to your point about, getting involved in the fight and things that you can do. So there's this site 1920.in, and it has instructions for this. I've pivoted a little, and I'll explain that. So Russia has closed off to anything but tightly controlled media. And as a result, people in Russia think they're out there saving Ukraine when they're actually killing indiscriminately. All right. And in the opinion of the Russian people, is what provides, the cover for Putin to do stuff like this. So the mission here is to counter that disinformation as best we can.
Mhm.
That's not the same as knocking down infrastructure. Okay. So on the 1920.in site, you can grab messages in Russian and text them to cell phones in Russia. Okay. So we are telling them the truth about things. Now, whether they believe that or not, I don't know. But it is a way of getting into the fight, specifically to move the needle on the disinformation and get the Russian people to decide this guy is being crazy. We got to get rid of him. Okay. So what I did was to start looking up restaurants and other businesses that have websites with a contact us page, right? So like restaurants in Stalingrad or, pick a Russian city. And if they have a contact us page, send messages in that way. So you are there are ways to get messages into Russia. Monkey wrench your way in there and send them, information on what's really happening.
Hmm.
It's a good idea to use the messages that they are crafting for you on the 1920.in site, because you can't be inflammatory. That's not going to help. You can't be accusatory. We all have to live on the same planet. We have nothing against the Russian people. We're sorry about the economic sanctions, but your president's out of control and only you can do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I have mixed feelings about this. I mean, who would believe some random person on the internet telling them things? But
If they got 100 of those messages,
no, I meant that sarcastically, Mike.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay, I
there are a
didn't
lot.
get it. Didn't get it.
There are a lot. I mean, maybe if they had a podcast, but never mind. So I mean, that does sound like a way to get in the fight without starting World War III. But certainly don't use your work systems to send the messages, and you probably want to send them from a burner address. You could even spoof your address to be the Kremlin or something.
Ooh, nice touch.
Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks. See, there you go. Hey, let's get to threats and vulns.
Yeah.
Threats in general, sky high right now. I think we all know. What do you need to get patching and updated to, stave off all the threats that exploit vulnerabilities as their tactic, especially with all the geopolitical stuff?
Yeah. So first, Microsoft just gave you patches that fix, I think it's 3 0 days and 3 critical vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
Android just got a big update. So don't resist the reboot. These are important security fixes. If you use ServiceNow as your help desk, most of these ServiceNow deployments have been found to be misconfigured and exposed because of overly permissive guest users.
Hmm.
So data can be extracted from the records in ServiceNow. So Google up that article and make some configuration tweaks. There are 16 high severity vulnerabilities with the UEFI firmware in HP devices. So UEFI is used for things like remote reboot, so you don't have to drive down to the data center, right? Don't drive. If you get popped, someone can throw malware into the firmware beneath the operating system.
So I'm pausing and looking at the chat here because we actually have a bunch of questions coming in.
Okay.
One of them is translating good things into Russian for us. Another is, what's your thought if an attacker group, in case of escalation, attack the critical infrastructure? How much deeper impact it could be to the nuclear facility? Could it result in a catastrophe, or would it just affect the functionality?
It would probably affect the functionality because there's a lot of fail safes to shut things down. And, there's the potential for, Stuxnet type malware to get in there, which tells all the operators everything is okay when everything is not okay. But, there's temperature sensors and things like that. And if things start to escalate, right, it pushes rods to absorb neutrons to avoid, the meltdown so, but you can certainly screw up operations. So I don't think we're at risk of meltdown. What we're at risk of is losing generation capacity on the grid.
Hmm.
So good question.
Not like sometimes we're literally talking about Chernobyl or anything. Hey, I want to go back to what you were just talking about, though, the UEFI firmware.
Yeah, I got more bones to talk about too.
Yeah, and on that one, you can never get rid of it, and every time you boot the computer, it's compromised.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. That's great. So again, HP computers. This one is probably the biggest one. There are 0-click vulnerabilities in APC UPS devices, okay, which everybody has, which can be compromised remotely and at scale. This puts data centers all over the world at risk. This could seriously have an impact on a global scale. So yeah, again, Google that up and find out what you got to do. These things talk to the cloud, and this is our Achilles heel. We've gotten everything to talk to the cloud.
Mhm.
Well, okay, that means they can be exploited remotely.
Hmm.
So there's what's the name of the IoT platform? Axeda, something like that. Um, uh,
I've always said
7, I think,
accident.
easily exploitable bugs, and this is an IoT framework. Um, it's in a lot of medical devices, ATMs, vending machines, industrial manufacturing equipment. So if any of these things are connected to the internet, they're at risk. And so, again, um, how you let your IoT communicate back and forth to the internet if it needs to talk to the cloud is a real danger. So, throw a sniffer, on your egress point and see if any of your IoT is talking, because if it is, you got to shut it down.
When you
Um,
said vending machines there, the first thing that I thought of was the ones on the Washington State ferries that my
that's what I
kids
thought of
that
too.
that my kids spend too much money on. So if they could figure out a way to get all of the candy to fall next time they get on a ferry, they'd be really excited.
Yeah.
That said, medical devices, that sounds dangerous. And by the
Yeah.
way, we'll have a webinar coming up about medical devices in a little more than a month here that we will tell people about once we create all the content and stuff. Hey, we're almost out of time, Mike. But somebody asked in the comment here in the chat here about here. I'm trying to get back to the chat here. Nuclear is mostly air gapped, right?
We would like to think so. I can't say that for certain, right? People need remote access to be able to, do maintenance at 3 o'clock in the morning without having to drive 50 miles to the plant. Now they're
Mhm.
staffed 24/7. So that's probably, remote access is probably not that big of a deal.
Mhm.
But I would be surprised if there was no remote access capability. And if you get remote access, you're going to have to get to what you need to get to, which means probably not air gapped. But the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, Critical Infrastructure Protection Standards, SIPs, the NERC SIPs, specify that that's exactly what you need to do. The operational technology and the information technology need to be separated by a big canyon of air. So, whether or not they're compliant there, whether or not they've, figured out some way to get remote access when they need it, we don't know.
Hmm. Hey, LinkedIn says we've worn out our welcome here. So you got a kicker? You got something at the end to make everybody smile? We need one today, Mike.
Yeah. Well, it made me smile. The Russian cell phone. Okay. It seems the Russians took out cell towers to shut down communications inside Ukraine, right? Failing to remember that they needed those same 4G cell towers for their super secret secure phone systems to work. So since they blew up the cell towers, they communicate using regular phones, which are all being surveilled. So nice strategic planning there, guys.
Well done.
Well
Well
done.
done. I'm still thinking about my kids and the vending machines and the ferries and all of the Snickers falling out next time they go. Something tells me so. I can't teach them how to do that, but Mike, something tells me you can.
Hmm. I like Brandon's messages here in the chat. That's, in fact, I'm gonna grab that one.
The one in
Actually,
Russian, yeah.
yeah, I think a restaurant in Leningrad needs to hear that one.
All right, everybody. So a couple of things. If you need an invite to the CMMC Conversation Day, email me, jake@criticalinsight.com. Also, every other Friday is security awareness training. If
Not
you need an
tomorrow.
invite to that, you can email me. Yes, every other Friday, which meant last Friday and next Friday, but not this Friday. Yeah, shoot me a note, jake@criticalinsight.com. Mike, have a great day, man.
Have a great day yourself. See
All right,
everybody
bye.
later.